Welcome to Oaa Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to Oaa Now. I'm Sammy Taramina, blog of the Dragon's Den, blog of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts between Taramina and Orion Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome our friends watching on Oxford Community Television and also those watching on YouTube. Happy New Year to everybody here. Got a lot of interesting things that occurred. Of course, some interesting storylines coming up this upcoming weekend, especially in the girls' basketball front where league play opens up. And of course, we have we'll recap what happened around the Motor City Roundball Classic and also around other tournaments that occurred this past last week. So stay tuned and let's talk about some of the action that occurred the last couple days. We've talked about the first few days of the Roundball Classic. Of course, the ended up ending on day 3 from the Motor City Roundball Classic. And my takeaways from it, you can also see my blog. I'm at Inside the OAA at Sammy_Taramina at blogspot.com. If you want to see my thoughts about it, but I'll give you some of my thoughts going around right now. So let's look at our first game, of course, the Pontiac Phoenix. This is a basketball team that ended up losing a very difficult matchup to Bay City All Saints in girls basketball. It was 39-32. And there were a lot of pointers in this game. When you look at what happened in that one, of course, Brayla Benyon is a very good player, I think, for Pontiac. Of course, she had 21 to Pontiac's 32 points, and that was a very difficult loss for the Phoenix against Bay City All Saints. I mean, Pontiac out-rebounded them 31-14, but at the end of the day, it was Pontiac turned the ball over 15 times. That really sealed them in that one. Also than that, Anaya Erkins, of course, she is one of the few Pontiac players that are back for the Phoenix. Had 12 points. So basically, if you think about it, it's kind of an odd thing, but she had 12 points in that defeat for Pontiac, and at the end of the day, it was a loss for Pontiac, and they're down to 3-4 on the year. But you really can't think about what happened in that matchup. So, other than that, it was a very tough loss for Pontiac and the Motor City Roundball Classic for the girls. But Pontiac right now looks like they're to be heading in the right direction right now. It's a basketball team. I think it's going to be better off in the long haul. And one of these losses is going to really help them going forward. Bloomfield Hills boys basketball, of course. As mentioned, they played New Baltimore Anchor Bay at the we'll talk about them in a bit, but they did come off a nice win the other day against New Baltimore Anchor Bay. Destroyed them 68-37. We'll talk about them briefly when because they had a match on that Friday against Cincinnati Coleraine, and that was a very interesting game right there. Troy Athens, of course, boys basketball team. As mentioned, of course, they ended up losing a very tough game against Livonia Stevenson, 76-72. Jacob Bradley had 21 points. Taylor Mascale had 17. Nick Cotton had 11 points, and Clark Johnson had 10. Balanced scoring for Troy Athens. The only issues they had was they were out-rebounded 25-14, and they were 15-22 from the line. And at times, that's not going to get it done in boys basketball. Of course, we'll briefly recap their game with the Oakhamans, where Jacob Bradley had a monster game in that one. We'll talk about that coming up. Southfield Arts and Tech's girls basketball team, as mentioned, I've been very critical of this team for the past few weeks. They ended up getting a big win the other night against Flint Powers Catholic. It was 76-30. But this interesting part was Deja Church did not play because of an ankle injury. She's expected to play on Thursday against Clarkston. That's gonna be a monster game. We'll preview that one. But Alexis Johnson scored 22 points, and actually she had 26 points. My bad. 22 points from the Michigan Storm AAU standout, Cheyenne McEvans. When you look at this, is a good win for them. Good bounce back win for the Warriors. But at the end of the day, I just am not sold on this basketball team. You're going to have size eventually, and that's what happened in their game with Detroit Renaissance, where I thought Detroit Renaissance size was too much for the Warriors, and I think it could be a huge problem going forward, especially when you get into district play. But either way, I still got some concerns. Yes, this team is starting to build their depth. They got McEvans. They got Johnson. McEvans more of like a 3 type of player, whereas Alexis Johnson's more of your 4 or a 5. She can play those. But, this is not what they're telling me is they're not clearly relying a ton on Deja Church, whereas they got some players such as McEvans and Johnson. Of course, I've known a lot about Cheyenne McEvans from her days at as an AAU standout playing for that Michigan Storm team. Of course, that is a very good AAU program over there in the Michigan Storm. Of course, that is a very good program over there. So, but anyway, the Southfield, and it's a good one for them. Got the big one with Clarkson coming up on Thursday, which I think is going to be a monumental game. I think for them it's going to be a clash of two styles. But we'll see what happens. We'll preview that one coming up later in the podcast. Oxford surviving Ann Arbor Skyline. They've had 2 bad luck games where they lost by 2 points. Of course, Lapeer, they lost 39-37 there. And then, of course, Avondale, they lost 40-38. Of course, you can see the Oxford-Avondale game on OCTV on their YouTube page. They played they were in that Northville tournament, and, they played Northville first day. They were blown out by 33 points, 63-30, and it wasn't even close. So Oxford had to go play in the consolation bracket where they played Ann Arbor Skyline. Of course, Ann Arbor Skyline lost to Warren Cousino. Of course, Warren Cousino ended up losing to Northville in the final, but in the consolation bracket it ended up being very close. And that one was 27-23 in favor of Oxford. Of course, they got some balanced scoring in that game. Really wasn't anything flashy, but either way, it's a good win for Oxford to close out 2016, heading to 2017. I mean, this is a team that really has had a lot of tough luck losses. Of course, it's a good win for Oxford, especially because Rachel Breyer. It's a good win for Rachel Breyer. Oxford's 2-4 in the year, and we'll see what happens with them going forward. They still got some good players. Mal Morse, a very good dynamic shooter. Ashley Hirschman's really improved. Monet Evans has been improved. They got an emerging freshman coming in, who I think is going to be a very good player. But other than that, I just think that, when they get in the league play, I think Oxford could have, they'll be okay. But I think when I look at the league, the white division this year, when you have teams like Bloomfield Hills, Royal Oak, Lake Orion are the 3 top teams in that division, it could be a very tough chore for the Wildcats. And West Bloomfield's a team that's emerging too, and it could be a very tough chore for Oxford going forward. So we'll see what happens with them. We shall see what happens with them going forward. So, that was from the recap of Day 3 over there at the Motor City Roundball. Takeaways from Day 4. Of course, and if we can't get to Day 5, we'll talk about the next segment. So, when I look at what happened in Day 4, of course, this was a busy day over at the Roundball, and around also there are other classics such as the Ypsilanti Showcase, and about Farmington, Grosse Pointe Style Classic about Stony Creek, Kalamazoo Central Classic about Oak Park, and of course the Bloomfield Hills Girls Basketball Showcase along with the Spartan Holiday Classic, which involved the Oxford Wildcats boys basketball team. But let's recap these teams here before we head to break. What happened there? Of course, Pontiac's boys, they took on Grosse Pointe North. Ended up losing 53-38. They battled the Northmen for about a half. But other than that, Grosse Pointe North pulled away late. They had a strong second half. Pontiac just couldn't get over the hump. Deshaun Jackson led Pontiac with 8 points. I mean, like, if you're in a league, you're going to need to have double figures when it comes to points. And, 8 points is not going to get done. But, this is it was a tough experience for Pontiac. Of course, they're going to be very young. They had a tough game with Livonia Stevenson earlier in the week in the Round Ball Classic. They have Troy Athens coming up in January. Of course, it's a big game for them. It is what it is for Pontiac. They're going to have their ups. They're going to have their downs. But at the end of the day, you can see it. This is a basketball team that's going to have a lot of hope and optimism going forward. Now, I'm not sure where Pontiac is going to finish in the white division this year because the white's really stacked. But it could be a very interesting year over there at Pontiac. It could be a very interesting year going forward for them. Yes, it could be. Harrison, when I look at Harrison, they played Cincinnati Coleraine. Harrison lost 58-52 in that one. They have a huge problem stopping people. And it clearly shown. Their last 3 games, Troy Athens put 85 on them. And then you have Detroit Cass Tech on that Tuesday put up 98 on them. That was just mind-boggling against Detroit Cass Tech. Now, Detroit Cass Tech's a very good basketball team. There's no doubt about that. But when they took on Cincinnati Coleraine, they didn't allow that much points. But still, 60 points is a little too much. 58 points. End of the day, I've got to give Cincinnati Coleraine a lot of credit. They competed, but Harrison can't stop anybody. And when you can't stop anybody, you allow 40 second half points. That's not good. That is scary. They have got to stop people if they want to win. And you're going to be in a division this year where Farmington will score a bunch of points this year. Berkeley, I think, is an interesting team, along with Ferndale. Of course, Royal Oak is going to be a good team. But if Harrison can't stop anybody, they're going to have big problems going forward. And they have been prone to give up plenty of points, and that showed in that game in their first game against Detroit Cass Tech at the Round Ball, and then of course the Cincinnati Coleraine game where they lost 58-52. You can't allow 40 points in the second half to win games. That's gonna make any coach, especially Coach Stephen Wilson, nuts. So for Harrison, enough said. You gotta stop. You gotta, and then of course you gotta play North Farmington, and North Farmington's starting to get their act together. That's gonna be scary right there for Harrison, because North Farmington can score. They can score. Groves' girls, of course, the first game of the Bloomfield Hills Classic, continued their winning streak. Of course, they blew out Royal Oak Shrine. I don't think Royal Oak Shrine's that good. 58-27. I mean, they used a 30-5 first quarter run behind Shea Carter. And, of course, Nelson. Of course, they were huge in that 56-53 win at Orion, which was huge for them going into Lake Orion and winning that game. See, I mean, Amos Thompson, I'm worried about his girls basketball team going forward, because when they get in the league play, there's really not anybody in that league that could challenge them. Probably the only team I could think of that could is Berkeley, but Berkeley lost a ton of talent from a year ago. Their next test should be on February 13th when they host Adams. You know, girls will win a lot of games this year, and but the question's going to be is how much improvement are they going to have between now and their districts? And you know, and their district's going to be very tough when you have teams like Birmingham, Marion, Bloomfield Hills. Then you have Troy, you have Seaholm, and then of course you have but the main two right now, it looks like it's going to be Birmingham, Marion, and Bloomfield Hills going forward. You know, and of course you have Avondale in there that's been improving as well. But besides those two teams, there's really, it's pretty much even Steven. Groves right now, I'd say would be the third best team in that district going forward. So we'll see what happens with Groves. They'll win games, but they're going to have some problems, I think, going forward, and it'll show. It will show. You know, their lack of competition, you know, will get them better. You know, Groves has played a really tough non-conference schedule. As we know, they played Clarkston, they played Orion, they played Southfield Arts and Tech. I mean, those three teams will get anybody better on any given day. So anyway, it's a big win for Groves going forward. I'm a little concerned about them going into league play, especially with the competition level. I think Groves is much better than people think. I think they're a better team than what everybody, and I think that the division they're in is very weak. But that's the major concern. How weak is that division going forward? Oak Park's boys, of course, are at the Kalamazoo Central Showcase. They took on Kalamazoo Central, and they ended up losing 80-73 to the unbeaten Maroon Giants. Now, Kalamazoo Central is a very tough basketball team. They're unbeaten. They're the reason why they're unbeaten. Yeah, they're very good. You know what I mean? They're very good. They can score in a bunch of ways. Oak Park, you know, they put up 73 points. 73 points will win you games in this league. But end of the day, you got to give Kalamazoo Central a ton of credit. You know, it was going to be a tough one defensively for Oak Park. Now they sit 500, 3-3. Open up with Southfield Arts and Tech on January the 12th. Oak Park, you know, there's a lot of positive to take out of this team. Really is. They're not a bad basketball team for sure. But we'll see what happens with them going forward. We shall see what happens with them going forward. I mean, I'm not pressing the panic button yet in the Knights. I'm not. I mean, you can't press the panic button on them early, even though they played 6 games and they sit 3-3. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We shall see what happens. West Bloomfield girls bounces back. You know, they bounced back from a tough loss earlier at the Rochester Classic to Pontiac Notre Dame Preparatory. They beat River Rouge 54-39 in the Bloomfield Hill Showcase. Got 14 points for Jordan Elam. Jamel Elam, Corey Maxey, Destiny Monroe, and Destiny Cannon were huge for Coach Jack Hilbers' team. You know, they like to run that. They like to play a lot of dribble penetration. I mean, like, that's a very good basketball team. I think West Bloomfield's a sleeper in the white this year. Even though I think they're the 4th place team right now in that division, I just think the white's going to be much tougher than people think. And I think, and if there's a team I think I can give Farmington's Mercy problems, a lot of people ask me, not North Farmington, it's West Bloomfield, because they got balance. They got some balance that can give some people problems, and I think West Bloomfield could give Mercy problems when they get in the districts. I think it can. But the depth scares me. The lack of depth scares me with this basketball team. But they got some talent. We'll see what happens going forward. Okay, now when we come back, we'll talk more basketball here. Of course, the Motor City Round Ball. Of course, the rest of the tournaments from days 4 and 5 of the Round Ball. And also, we will preview the 3 big games in girls basketball coming up this week. Actually, the 4 big games here on Oaa Now.
you own a Habitat home?
I love working on my Habitat home.
Soy dueño de una casa de Habitat.
My neighbor is a Habitat homeowner.
Being a Habitat homeowner has changed our lives.
My mortgage payment for Habitat is less than what I pay for rent.
Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County currently has homes available with mortgage payments lower than most rent payments. If you or someone you know needs decent and affordable housing, call 248-338-1843 or visit our website at habitatoakland.org.
Welcome back to Oaa Now. I'm Sam Timmy here. Of course, we're going to continue talking about what happened over the holiday break, and of course, we'll preview the basketball games upcoming week. So stick back and watch, and stick back and hear my thoughts and insights. So, let's go to Oxford. Of course, the Oxford boys basketball team, they end up being in the Spartan Holiday Classic at Emily City. They took on a very good Richmond team who I think is going to be a very dangerous team in the Blue Water Area Conference Blue Division. I think that's the same division that Omaa is in. Of course, Omaa is coached by Adams coach John Hall. And very good guy, by the way. But anyway, it was 64-59 in favor of Oxford winning that game over Emily City, or a very solid Richmond team. When you look at Oxford, they rely a lot on Jordan Jaden, Ray Levine, Norton Hollering, and Jordan LaBallas. This was a big win for them. I mean, the reason why it is because, when you're going through a coaching transition like they've had to go through the last season with Dave Brown, taking over the interim reign for Stepan Henning, of course, we know what happened there with him. Dave Brown on the interim basis. Now he's back down coaching at freshman. And now you have Steve Laidlaw, of course, back at the saddle over there. It's a good win for Oxford, really is. They're going to get tested. I believe January the 9th, they're going to get really tested when they play Pontiac Notre Dame preparatory on the road. And that's going to be and of course, this is a basketball team that just beat Rochester last week, and this is a basketball team where I think that they're going to get problems. I think Oxford, they're going to be confident coming in, but Pontiac Notre Dame Preparatory is a very good basketball team, and I think they're going to give Oxford a lot of problems. I really do. I mean, it'll be a good game over there between the Irish and the Wildcats. It will be, but that'll be another good test for Coach Steve Laidlaw and his team. Be a very good test for his program going forward. So we'll see what happens with them. We shall see what happens with them going forward. So for Oxford, it's a big win for them. They're getting there. They're developing. They're getting there. Good win for them. Good win for them against a solid Emily City team. Good win for them. Southfield Arts and Tech. Played Wall Lake Northern. Of course, they were in another game in the Round Ball Classic. We'll go over them in a minute. But they ended up losing 59-53 to the Knights. Of course, battled, Jalen Kelso's team. When you look at that game, you really do. They were led by Remy Torberg at 15 points. They're still missing Michael Flowers. He wasn't 100% in that game. He played in that game. But they're going to have to move on. I mean, other than that, it was a very good game. It was a good game for him. Either way, you got to give him credit. You got to give him credit. And, they battled back. Wall Lake Northern's going to be a very good team this year. I think they're a very underrated team. But we'll see what happens with them going forward. We shall see what happens with them going forward. Farmington. That game was 52-49 in favor of Farmington over Ypsilanti. Jordan Gann was the difference in that game. He had 25 points, 10 rebounds. Now they won't play another game until January 13th. They go to Birmingham. to play the Maples of Birmingham Seal. Good win for Farmington. Of course, they had a really bad 70-65 loss on that Monday to Detroit Frederick Douglass. Just a bad loss for him. But either way, it was a good win for him. Really good win for Farmington. It was a good win for him. Nice win for him. North Farmington, of course, at the Blooming Hills Classic, they destroyed Waterford Mott. It was 43-23. Shocked how they turned that game around. They blew them out like that. Samantha Cherney was huge in that game. Shut down Myra Williams. Kira Crockett took over that game as well. But you got to give credit to Coach Jeff Simpson's pressure trap defense. Very similar defense to what the Negocian family's done with that pressure trap defense that they've done. Kellen James uses a ton of that when he's at Stony Creek. But either way, it's a good win for him. Good win for the Raiders. I'm surprised how they shut down Myra Williams. Now, it didn't help in that game where Waterford Mott ended up losing a starter who ended up getting hurt in that game. But, it is what it is. It is what it is. So, see what happens going forward with them. They will open up January league play against Rochester Adams, which that could be a very interesting matchup. Of course, be very interesting to see how they do going forward with them. Be very interesting. Yes, and it will be very interesting going forward. Stony Creek's boys basketball team, they lost a tough one at the Grosse Pointe South Classic. Of course, they lost 50-48 to Plymouth. Of course, they had a heartbreaking loss to Grosse Pointe South earlier in the week. But this one's really tough one to take because Stony Creek had a strong first quarter. Had a 19-9 first quarter. But Plymouth dominated second and third quarters. Stony Creek outscored Plymouth 12-6 in the fourth. Wasn't enough. But when you look at the second and third quarters, that was the difference in that game, and they got outscored 36-17. You can't do that. You cannot do that if you want to be a very good basketball team. You really can't do that. So it's a tough loss for Coach Dean Ergon and his team. Lost 2 straight games. They're thankfully happy to be getting out of Grosse Pointe South. Thankfully happy. Now they got to play Adams on Friday. Very interesting game. Adams, though, very injury-riddled this year. Going through a new system, of course, adjusting from John Hall's system to Brad Crichton's system. And, it's a very different system of play for Rochester Adams going forward. So, Stony Creek right now, I'm not pressing the panic button on this team yet. Really am not. But at the end of the day, you got to give credit where credit's due. And, Stony Creek ended up, they lost that one, and it was a tough one for them to go out. So, we'll see what happens going forward. Hazel Park, destroyed Grand Blanc the other night. 69-40. Really impressed with them. Carl Boseman playing very good basketball. David Hernston playing really good basketball. It's a basketball team that has 8 players. Pretty much stunning me. And you look at this basketball team, this is scary. And to do this against a team like Grand Blanc, who has more students than Hazel Park, of course, Hazel Park's a Class B school. Grand Blanc's a Class A school. The good news for Hazel Park is they have a break to recover. Bad news is who they play next. They play Clarkson on the road. Clarkson's playing Flint Carmen Ainsworth on Tuesday, which I think that's going to be a very difficult matchup for the Cavaliers. Other than that, Hazel Park's very good. They're a very good basketball team. There's no doubt about that. Very, very good basketball team. Yes, they are. North Farmington's boys basketball team got a much-needed win the other night against Dearborn Devon Child. Amari Hardy scored 29 points. Carl Patrick had 16 points. We'll talk more about North Farmington coming up in a minute because they had another game at the round ball against Troy Henry Ford. So we'll see what happens with them going forward with them. Bloomfield Hills. This was a basketball team that I call them the modified version of North Dakota State, and they look like that modified version of North Dakota State. You know, if I had to put Bloomfield Hills against North Dakota State of that team in 2009, I would take North Dakota State over this team, or Bloomfield Hills, seriously, because of the experience. Both teams have a lot of experience, but either way, they look good against Harperwood Chandler Park Academy. The modified version of North Dakota State I call Bloomfield Hills. They used Samantha Patterson, only a junior, had 19 points. Amanda Wright had 13. Victory Franklin at 11. Amanda Sabe at 10 points. It was 59-29. Far cry from what happened last year, where Bloomfield Hills was shocked. They were just shocked how they lost. Now, they did lose Captain Preenan to an ankle injury, but I expect her to play in the Orion game. It's going to take something really serious to keep her out of that game. It's going to be a good game, I think, between Bloomfield Hills and Orion. I really do think it will be. But it's going to be, the question's going to be is will the Dragons show up? That's the question. But we'll preview that game coming up later in the next topic. We will preview that game. From day 5 of the tournament action, of course, that is going to be a very interesting dynamic. Of course, a lot of interesting games that occurred during the week. My phone's acting up here. I don't know why, but either way, I think that's a big it's an interesting dynamic. The day 5 recap, of course, Troy Athens took on Okemos. Of course, actually, we got it now back up here. So, Troy's boys basketball team, they came back from 20 down to knock off Cambridge St. Benedict of Canada. It was 54-48. It was a heck of a game. Danny Sully had 17. Jason Dietz had 16. It's a good win for Coach Gary Fralick and his team, considering that they were down by 20 at one point. Came back and won that game. Good win for Coach Fralick and his team. Really nice win for him. Of course, Troy Athens, they had their own girls, boys, triple six games. Girls had no problem with Brandon. Had no problems with him. It was they were in control, I think, for about 3.5 quarters. Dominating Brandon. And not even 18-2 run by the Blackhawks could save in that game. May come in a nice game. They got a big one coming up with Avondale, who's been red hot. Avondale's a very good basketball team this year. Very good basketball team. They got that big showdown. That could be for the blue title. Who knows? Bloomfield Hills boys basketball team, they used a strong third quarter to get a big win over Cincinnati Coleraine. Of course, Kiwanis Graham was huge for them. They had a nice win the other night to knock off New Baltimore and Bay. Very good basketball team here. Coach Mike Mariansky's got his team rolling. It is what it is. They got a big one coming up. They play Pontiac next, so that'll be a big game for them. See what happens with them going forward. Yes, we will. Girls could be in line for a big year in boys basketball. Had no problem with Utica Ford. Charles Jones transferred from Detroit Renaissance. He had 24 points. Drew Shekel had 15 points in that victory. Groves' schedule will be interesting because they got Berkeley coming up. And they got to go to Hazel Park, which is, I think, is going to be a monster game for them coming up. Of course, we'll see what happens with them going forward. We shall see what happens with them. Yes, we should. Yes, we shall. Good win for Coach Mark West and his team. Really good win for him. Back to North Farmington. Of course, we mentioned a couple weeks ago, Scott Bernstein in his blog said about calling out his team after their loss to Farmington. Didn't think they were that good. Motor City Roundball Tournament, they end up being a very good team again. Played Detroit Henry Ford in the final game of the Roundball Classic, in which the Raiders survived the past Detroit Henry Ford 53-49. Amari Hardy had a big game. He had 21 points. Carl Patrick at 13 points. But a newcomer to the party, improving player, and Kendall Hayes. He had 14 points. So he was very quiet coming into the game against Detroit Henry Ford. Then he woke up against them. So it was a good win for North Farmington. And they overcame 2 8-point deficits. What really helped them was their traditional pressure trap defense, of course, the Goshen family always loves to do. And they ended up getting a big win over Detroit Henry Ford. And we'll see what happens going forward with the Raiders. They have Adams coming up to open Red Play in January. So let's see. It was a good win for North Farmington. Really, really big win for North Farmington. It was a really big win for him. Michael Flowers almost brings back Southfield Arts and Tech against nobody Detroit Catholic Central. Of course, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I said Michael Flowers was not healthy for most of Southfield's season. However, the Warriors, Flowers almost brought his team back. 29 points. It wasn't enough. Of course, it was 71-70 in favor of the Shamrocks, knocking off the Warriors. Remy Tolbert had 17 points as well in defeat. This team is a very deceptive 1-5. But I think Southfield Arts and Tech, when healthy, is a much dangerous team going forward. And either way, this is a very, very interesting team going forward with the Warriors. And, when you look at Southfield Arts and Tech, of course, they've had to overcome a lot of adversity. They've managed to find a way to survive, and they've managed to win. And it's a huge win for the Warriors going forward. Huge for the Warriors going forward. They play Oak Park to open up in January. But I think for Coach Mike Avery's team, they've got to be patient. The wins will come. You're in a very tough league. Of course, the Reds are a very tough league to handle. Of course, you got West Bloomfield, Bloomfield Hills. And then, of course, you got that team off Flemings Lake Road that you're going to have to deal with. And that's never an easy thing to deal with. So, either way, it's a good win. For Southfield Arts and Tech, the wins will come. They just got to be patient. They've got to be patient. But they're playing the right style of basketball, which is pretty good for them going forward. And then last but not least, I mentioned Troy Athens. They played Okemos the other night. As mentioned, they lost another tough game. Lost 85-81 on their home court to Okemos. Jacob Bradley was huge in that game. He had 41 points. How do you lose when you have one player go off for 41 points? How does that happen? Troy Athens' defense has been a huge problem. They can score. They can score a ton of points. But either way, this is not their defense. They've got some issues defensively. And, Coach Dave Scott's team, they do got some severe issues defensively, and they've got to get it addressed. And either way, if they can get it addressed, I think they're going to be better off going forward. So when I look at Troy Athens defensively, this is a team that's got a huge problem. Offensively, they can score in bunches. Other than that, this is a basketball team that has two different identities. Defensively, get a ton of points. But offensively, this team can score a ton of points. So, not press the panic button on Oak Park or anybody. But other than that, we'll see what happens to them going forward. Final thoughts, of course, when you look at Oak Park, when you look at the Motor City Round Ball, the holiday tournaments, they're all done. You know what I mean? So we can just focus on the rest of the regular season. So it is a good thing going forward, and we'll see what happens going forward with the with all these teams going forward, heading into the new year of January of 2017. So we'll see what happens. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to preview the big ones coming up this week. Of course, girls basketball, it's a big one. A couple big games, we'll preview them. And also a couple boys games I think that's got my eye here on Oaa Now.
Prescription drug abuse is a national epidemic. The new in way to obtain drugs is through parents' or grandparents' medicine chests. Removing prescriptions from your cabinet is the best way to keep drugs out of the hands of our young people. We've got to work together to protect our teens, our seniors, and our environment. Clean out your medicine cabinet today. Please participate in Operation Medicine Cabinet and drop off your unwanted or expired prescriptions at one of our law enforcement drop-off sites in Oakland County. We can't ignore this situation anymore.
Welcome back to Oaa Now, same community here. Of course, we got some couple big games coming up this week that we'll preview this week. There's a couple of them I think they're going to be very interesting. Very curious to see how they come out. I think there's a couple of them that do have my attention. We're going to go with girls first. The first one I think is going to be a big game. I think it's going to be is Southfield Arts and Tech taking on Clarkston. That's going to be a Thursday game on the road for the Warriors at Clarkston. Contrast the two different styles. When you look at Southfield Arts and Tech with Deja Church, you look at Shine McEvans, you look at then of course you have Alexis Johnson. The key in that match for the Warriors is they're going to have to use their speed and their quickness against Clarkston, who's got a three-headed monster of Maddie Beck, Molly Nicholson, and Kaya Lukenbach. And those three players have been very instrumental in Clarkson's season this year to their 7-0 start. So that's going to be a very, very tough matchup. I'm curious to see how does Southfield Arts and Tech matches up with Clarkson's size, especially going to a big court. Now, considering you might want to throw away the court size, you know what I mean? Because I think it's pretty much an even thing there. If it's a speed game, advantage Southfield Arts and Tech. Slow, methodical, big in height, advantage Clarkston. Because if you really look at it, if Southfield Arts and Tech can take away the two bigs and Maddie Beck, then it's anybody's ball game. I think Clarkston's going to have a much tougher time taking away Church, taking away Johnson, taking away McEvans. I think it's going to be either way. It's going to be a very interesting matchup. That's the matchup that's got my attention. Is going to be can Clarkston handle Southfield Arts and Tech's speed, and if for Southfield Arts and Tech's part, can the Warriors handle Clarkston's size? Because if Southfield Arts and Tech can handle Clarkston's size, then I think it's going to be pretty much a unique situation going forward in that matchup. I'm not gonna make any predictions in that matchup, nor any of the matchups matching this week. Just previewing what I expect will be going forward. So Southfield Arts and Tech and Clarkston. It's whoever style of play works at Clarkston will win that game over at Clarkston on Thursday night. Speaking of Thursday night, let's go to another interesting game. Of course, Stony Creek taking on Belleville. Of course, this was a matchup that was supposed to be made at the Michigan Holiday Classic. Of course, that was supposed to be played earlier on, but I guess the organizers canceled the Stony Creek Belleville game. Don't know why, but either way, I mean but I'm very happy that Stony Creek's athletic director and Belleville's athletic director made the switch and put it on Thursday. So I think it'll be a very interesting game. And I also like the fact that it's involving their JV. Both JV programs are also going to be playing in the early game as well. So when I look at this matchup between Stony Creek and Belleville, that was not the same Stony Creek team that played in the Round Ball Classic where they ended up losing to Flint Carmen Ainsworth. Remember, as I mentioned last week, that I said Emily Sloak did not play in that game, and that was a huge reason why they lost that game. So, but I think when you look at Stony Creek, they're gonna have Solik back. They're to go along with Emily Elkhart. I think the key is they can develop inside post presence. Of course, when you look at, they have some pieces in Uabody and also Gina Cerny, who could do well in the interior. Or maybe even you can move Elkhart or Solik to play in the interior as well, because when you look at that matchup, Belleville's a very good team. They're quick, athletic. They're not a bad basketball team, and I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup to see what style of play works over there. I think it really helps Stony Creek. They're at home for this game. Doesn't really help Belleville that much because they're going to have to travel out up to Oakland County from Wayne County. But other than that, that's a very, very interesting matchup for Stony Creek. Of course, they're curious how they respond after losing like that in the Round Ball Classic. That was not a good way for Stony Creek to play the way they did in that game. They were just, I didn't think they played very well in that game at all. But I think Kellen James's crew, I think if they can bounce back from this, I think they're going to be okay, and I think they will bounce back from this. But either way, Stony Creek needs to bounce back game like this. They need to figure a way to bounce back in this one, and I think they will find a way to bounce back in this one coming up with Belleville. So that's another game that interests me. Another game that interests me, of course, is West Bloomfield Royal Oak. That match is a very interesting game because the reason why it's interesting is because you look at that matchup and what it says to me is West Bloomfield's got some talent. I mean, when you look at Jamal Elam, Jordan Elam, Destiny Monroe, Destiny Cannon, and of course, let's not mention Corey Maxey either. To go against Royal Oak and their suffocating pressure defense under Brian Zapata, when you have a girl like Samantha Potter, June Donnellan, Claire Kaczynski, of course, Jessica Adams as well. This is an interesting matchup when you look at these two teams. Now, these two teams split their games last year. Of course, Royal Oak winning. Of course, West Bloomfield won on their home court, and then Royal Oak won on their home court. So this is a very interesting matchup between the Lakers and the Ravens, and I think it's going to be a key to think that West Bloomfield's depth is going to be a major concern in this game. I think it will be a major concern because, Royal Oak is very deep. Of course, they have and they also got a lot of length. They got a lot of size. So the key is if West Bloomfield can make this into a small game, I think it's going to be to their benefit. But if Royal Oak uses their depth and their size, it's going to be a very tough chore for West Bloomfield going forward. And there's a reason why I got some concerns hanging in this game if I'm Zach Hilbert, and it's because of the fact that, you got two girls who can definitely play in Rakaya Curry and of course Jamal Elam. Royal Oak's got a girl named Samantha Potter, and Potter's a very good player. There's no doubt. She's only a sophomore, but she's proven to be a very good player, and she has taken over games. Royal Oak relied on their balance, and this is a team that's been very competitive. Of course, this is a team that was very competitive against Clarkson, very competitive against there's a reason why this basketball team is very good. Now, The schedule, I wouldn't say hasn't been the greatest, but you're playing a schedule that you're given. Either way, but still, this is a very good basketball team that Coach Brian Zapata has over there at Royal Oak. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between the Lakers and the Ravens. Very, very interesting matchup going forward for those two teams. And then, of course, in the girls, we got Lake Orion taking on Bloomfield Hills. This one's a rematch of two games where both teams split, winning on the road last year. Bloomfield Hills winning the Lake Orion, won that game. Of course, Lake Orion, of course, winning the Bloomfield Hills, returned the favor, winning at their place. What I'm curious to see is, I call Bloomfield Hills the North Dakota State of this year, because when you look at the Blackhawks, they got 9 seniors on that team. You look at Amanda Sape, Victory Franklin, Maya Jones. You look at a Manny Wright. You look at, and then of course you have a Becca Hancock. You have a lot of senior talent on that team. Now you got a lot of juniors too. Of course, you got Becca Hancock, of course the junior Samantha Patterson as well. But the reason why I call Bloomfield Hills North Dakota State, they have the resemblance of the Bison and of that team from 2009. When of course Bloomfield Hills had, of course, when North Dakota State had Ben Woodside, Kevin Winkleman, a lot of others that truly benefited that ended up winning, going to the NCAA tournament in men's basketball. But Bloomfield Hills has a lot of that talent, that resembles a lot of North Dakota State. And, this is a very dangerous basketball team. I mean, they're deep, they're talented. They played together a long time, very similar to North Dakota State. Very, very similar. And you look at Lake Orion. Lake Orion's had a really rough start. 3-4 right now. This team sits. The problem with this team is this team, you're going to need Manny Novak to play very well. And, for this team to be very successful. And, in games where Orion's lost, Novak really has been shut down. And, that cannot continue if Lake Orion wants to win basketball games, And you're also trying to change the culture over there with Kevin Kopech there as the head man, placing Steve Roberts there at Orion. The big key, I think, in this one's going to be rebounding. Of course, when you look at rebounding, Bloomfield Hills has 2 girls who can definitely rebound. Of course, Victory Franklin, and of course, we all know about Amanda Sape. Why Kent State's is recruiting her to play for the Golden Flashes next year in the Mid-American Conference. Lake Orion really doesn't have a true rebounder, and that's a big, big problem. And it's shown in their losses. Of course, in the game against Groves, Lake Orion just did not rebound very well, and it showed its ugly head. I think for the Dragons to have a chance, a second scorer has to come out and has to be very consistent. When you look at last year's game, of course, Evan Wishmeyer was huge against Bloomfield Hills, of course, to go along with Novak. So if you really have that second scorer, that's going to have to go off. You can't rely on and can Lake Orion be able to stop Bloomfield Hills' transition fast break? And if they can do that, play a slow, methodical game, then I think Lake Orion's got a chance in this game. But everything right now, when you look at everything is stacked against this team. When you look at this Lake Orion team, it looks on paper everything is stacked against them. When you look at the matchup, it looks like Manny Novak's going to play perfect, and of course they're going to have a second and third scorer against this very good Bloomfield Hills offensive attack. Now, defensively, though, I can't trust this Bloomfield Hills team. I can't trust them defensively, Even the game against Caledonia, they didn't play very well in that one. But other than that, you really, in the game with Adams, of course, Bloomfield Hills didn't win that game at 15. they're a very dangerous team. There's no doubt about that. You know, they can slow you down. They can run it up. You know, so we'll see what happens in that game. You know, but right now, looking at it here, everything is against Lake Orion right now against in that game, Blue Bay Hills. It's gonna be a very, very tough chore if the Dragons can pull this off. If the Dragons can pull this off, it'll be huge for their confidence. It'll be huge for them. But everything right now, it just doesn't look good right now early on for this team. The way they've been struggling, losing 3 of 4. You know, this team's got some issues. There's no doubt about that. Boys games, of course, interest me. Of course, Clarkson put Carmen Ainsworth on Tuesday. I don't think Carmen Ainsworth got much of a chance. And also, you got Stony Creek taking on Adams on Friday. I think that's gonna be a huge game. Of course, Adams reeling a little bit. I think they're gonna get some of their players back who haven't been healthy. Stony Creek's lost 2 straight games, so I'm curious to see what happens with them going forward in that direction there. We'll see what happens with them. Final thoughts, of course, you know, we'll see what happens coming up. Of course, the break is over. Kids are heading back to class, most likely starting on Wednesday. So we'll see what happens going forward. Okay, now I'm going to sign off here. You know, enjoy 2017. Of course, we'll see y'all next week. Goodbye. See y'all soon.
Oaa Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.